Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. So, Donald Trump has now crushed two Tory parties in Canada and now Australia. In both cases, not only did the right-wing parties lose from what was a dominant winning position just a few months ago, but the party leaders in both countries lost their own seats. Trump's policies are not even popular in his own land. So Trump has actually crushed Trumpism in 3 English-speaking countries so far, and yet Nigel Farage thinks he can openly support the same policies which have repulsed people in these countries in Britain. He's talking about DOGE-style job cuts at the councils Reform UK now have control over. Now, unless that's a bluff, Farage is going to set himself on a collision course with not just unions, but his own voters, just as Labour are legislating for better workers' rights and for stronger union action. Get the popcorn ordered. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So, the Australian election results. Labour won after being down and out at the start of the year. That should be a wake-up call for any Conservatives operating in similar cultures, more so than in Canada. In Canada, there were multiple factors at play. The Liberal Party replaced their unpopular leader. That helped. It wasn't just that Trump's policies were unpopular either. There was the threat of both a serious trade war and even annexation of their territory. In Australia, Trump has made no threats towards them, beyond the 10% tariffs, which we also have in Britain. Australia rejected the Conservative opposition, which had been riding high in the polls, because they were aping Trump's MAGA rhetoric and policies, and the Australian public, by and large, went, yeah, we don't want that here. Just as in Canada, Australian voters didn't just turn against their own Tories, who mere months ago they were preparing to put them into power. Their leader lost his own seat. So if you were on the right wing in Britain and realising we're not really very different to either Canada or Australia, culturally speaking, you would maybe think twice about trying to appear to be the British branch of MAGA, wouldn't you? In fact, the warning should ring louder in Britain because there is still at least 3 years before the next general election. That means that when Britons go to the polls for our next national elections, that public will have seen 3 more years at least of the effects of Trumpism in America. And let me tell you something that I am absolutely certain of in these very uncertain times. One of 2 things is going to happen in America. Either Trumpism is going to collapse like a badly conceived souffle, or life is going to get way worse for the sort of ordinary people in the US who were attracted to MAGA policies. And yet, despite these warning bells ringing for anyone thinking of copying Trumpism, Nigel Farage seems to think he's immune to the same political gravity which is making its presence felt in the US, Canada, and Australia. Perhaps he thinks that because he's just won a stunning victory this week, that there must be something different about Britain. No, there's nothing different about Britain. In fact, we're more similar to Australia, especially, than either population might like to admit. The difference was in the type of election. Local elections aren't about deciding the big national or foreign policies. They're about bins and potholes. And so a lot of voters just use it to fire a warning shot across the bows of the government. People in the UK do not take local elections seriously, which is why they are almost always used to tell the government off, right? People aren't thinking about how they want their government to handle the big issues. Come the general election, the thinking changes. Farage is often held up as an example of a political leader with acumen. I think he has seemed so because our recent political leaders across the spectrum have been relatively poor. Nicola Sturgeon stands out as being, I think, the only British political leader over the past decade anywhere that was capable of actual political strategic thinking herself. So Farage has been flattered by poor competition and free media publicity. I do not think he's a great strategic thinker. Even when Putin became about as welcome as cat shit in your cereal, Farage refused to condemn him, instead trying to be vague and dodge questions rather than outright condemn Russia's aggression. And after seeing Trump destroy 2 Conservative parties in fellow English-speaking countries, as well as his own domestic support tumble, Farage still thinks it's a good idea to pursue Trumpist policies. And he's not even trying to pursue the same policies, but disguised. His speech about what was going to happen to Durham County Council, he said anyone working in DEI should be seeking alternative careers. Now, to be clear for our American viewers, DEI isn't a thing here. The concept of inclusivity and diversity hiring is, but we don't call it DEI. We call it equal opportunities. You have various companies who will say, we are an equal opportunities employer. It means sort of the same thing, but it's a very different phrase. In fact, we also don't always have the people working on it in councils anyway. Andrea Jenkins, who's now going to be my mayor, has said she's going to sack anyone, who's working in that role. And people are saying, we don't have people working on that role. And the reason we don't have people working out there at the council level is because it's the law. Equal opportunity is sort of a legal requirement anyway. So companies are supposed to do it themselves. So Farage is not just trying to ape the policies. He's actively using the terms associated with America and therefore Trump, which are not in common use in Britain. So that just draws attention to the fact he's trying to copy Trump. He's actively making a point of saying he wants to do to Britain what Trump is doing to America. Well, we're looking at America and going, yeah, it seems to be on fire, mate. A political genius he is not. A grifter chancer fits the bill more. And he may now be at his last chance saloon if this is the way he's going to behave. Unison, one of the biggest unions, has already urged council workers, where Reform UK have taken over, to get signed up in order to protect themselves from the job losses being threatened. There's talk of 10% cuts, like literally sacking 10% of council workers in some places. Oh, and if you are a council worker worried about what might happen if Darren Grimes and his fellow Reform brain donors tries to ape Elon Musk in your council, there's a link to Unison's website in the description below. Workers have better rights in the UK than America, and they are months away from being way better. Just let Reform try it. But if they do try it, they're obviously going to target non-union workers first, so, don't be one of them. But I find Farage's confidence to be baffling here. The Tories who lost so badly in Canada and Australia, they tried to distance themselves from Trump when they realised how toxic he was. Didn't fool enough voters to work, though. The only reason Trumpism in America isn't doomed to failure is because the orange one is in power there. But people in America are not supporting the moves Trump could not win a free and fair election in America after this. They're not supporting this. If he was to have to take part in an election that was a genuine election, he couldn't rig it, he would lose badly. Farage is only empowering some councils in Britain. He has no power to determine how elections are going to take place, even in those councils. He can still benefit from free promotion on social media platforms, courtesy of Uncle Elon and Uncle Vlad. And even that may be reduced in the next few years, we will see. It's not even like Farage is going to be ably supported by his new troops, like my new mayor, Andrea Jenkins. As well as threatening to sack people who don't exist, she's already had to run away from one interview after she struggled to deal with some of the racist things she said during the campaign being questioned. And a lot of the new Reform councillors, they've got no council experience. So they're going to be all at sea trying to run the local bureaucracy without a clue about how it works. I also gather there were a lot of paper candidates for Reform who won. So paper candidate, for those who don't know, it's when you haven't got a candidate, no one wants to do it, but you want to put someone up. So you just say, well, you won't win, just stand for us, will you? And then unexpectedly they win. Well, these tend to be people who really aren't prepared to put the time into being councillors. Otherwise, they would have just agreed to be the candidate, right? Remember, the job doesn't pay an actual wage. That's why so many councillors are either retired or business owners who don't need to manage their own businesses day to day. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of commitment for someone with a job as well. And the idea that Farage wants to tie Reform UK to the sinking ship of Trump's MAGA, which has already torpedoed 2 right-wing parties in the last week and threatens to only become more unpopular over the next few years. Again, whether that is by crushing the living standards of the people it's supposed to be helping or just being seen to have failed dismally. Whatever Nigel Farage is, I can think of lots of terms. Political genius is not one of them. Reform UK have built their success on pretending that a party of multimillionaires with a billionaire in charge of their finances and the richest person in the world doing their promotion is somehow on the side of the downtrodden working people. Yet this same so-called champion of the People Party is now threatening large numbers of, and I mean large numbers of council workers with the sack out of pure ideology. I cannot think that this is going to work out well for them. A smarter operation would have been to keep their powder dry until they won power nationally, where they then would have the power to legislate around how elections are conducted, as Trump did. Farage seems to think he can succeed where Trump failed by somehow being dumber than Trump. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.